and it needed. The council chamber stretched wide, like an arena, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some floated in zero-gravity pods, others stood on platforms built for their strange bodies. At the center stood Deho, a human ambassador who had seen too many funerals in the past 3 years. His gray suit was simple compared to the elaborate garments worn by other diplomats, but his eyes carried a weight that made even the oldest species uncomfortable. Behind him, Gi Wu sat at a communication station, her fingers moving quickly across holographic displays. She recorded everything, as she always did. Every word, every gesture, every dismissive laugh from the aliens who thought humanity was too young to matter. She had been doing this job for 2 years, and it never got easier. Deho activated the display above him. Images filled the air showing burned cities and broken homes. Bodies covered in white sheets lined the streets of what had once been a thriving colony. The numbers scrolled past. 40,000 dead on Sabiel. 7. Men, women, children. All gone in a single attack. "This is the 17th attack in 3 years, Deho said, his voice steady despite the anger burning in his chest. "We have brought evidence. We have brought witnesses. We have followed every protocol your council demands. The Vorthan Collective continues to attack our colonies, and you continue to do nothing." A massive creature rose from its seat across the chamber. Kreth, the Vorthan ambassador, had 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. His species had conquered 40 worlds before humans even learned to make fire. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The humans complain again," Kreth said, his voice booming through the chamber. "Your colonies sit on worlds that belong to the Vorthan sphere of influence. You have been in space for barely 200 years. We have ruled these regions for 10,000. Perhaps if you were stronger, you could keep what you claim." Laughter rippled through the council. Not from everyone, but from enough. Deho felt Ji Wu tense behind him, but he raised a hand slightly, telling her to stay calm. They had expected this. They always expected this. "The law of the Galactic Council is clear," Deho continued. "Attacks on civilian populations are forbidden. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking you to enforce your own laws." An elder council member, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when it moved, spoke next. "The humans are correct in their reading of the law. However, the Vorthan Collective is a founding member of this council. Such matters require careful deliberation." "We cannot simply careful deliberation," Deho interrupted, something he had never done before in this chamber. The crystal being went silent. 40,000 people died last week. How many more need to die while you deliberate?" Kreth laughed louder this time. "Perhaps all of them. Your species breeds like insects anyway. What are a few thousand when you claim to have billions?" He turned to address the council. "The humans are soft. They build colonies in our territory and cry when we remove them. They have small ships, weak weapons, and their bodies are fragile. They survived only because their world is a death trap that made them clever. But clever does not win wars." Deho stood very still. He had been a soldier before he became a diplomat, serving in Earth's defense forces for 20 years. He knew things that Kreth did not, things that the entire galaxy did not know, things humanity had been hiding for a very long time. "We have asked you to stop," Deho said quietly. "We have begged. We have negotiated. We have tried every peaceful option your council offers. You have failed," Kreth said. "Because you are weak." Deho looked at Ji Wu. She met his eyes and nodded once. She knew what was coming. They had talked about this moment for months, hoping it would never arrive. But here it was. "Then let me be clear," Deho said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "This is humanity's final warning. You have 30 days to end all attacks on human colonies. 30 days to begin negotiations for reparations. 30 days to enforce your own laws. If you do not, if even one more human dies at Vorthon hands, humanity will consider itself at war with the Vorthon Collective." The chamber fell silent. Even Kreth stopped laughing. "You?" Kreth finally said. "You declare war on us. We have 40,000 warships. Our soldiers are born for combat. Your entire species would not last a month against our might." 30 days, Deho repeated. "Not 1 day more." The crystal being chimed urgently. "Ambassador Deho, you cannot be serious. War with the Vorthon Collective would be suicide for your species. We urge you to reconsider." "We have considered," Deho said. "For 3 years, we have considered. Every time we pulled bodies from the rubble, we considered. Every time we sent messages that you ignored, we considered. We are done considering." Kreth's eyes narrowed. "You bluff. Humans are cowards who hide behind diplomacy because they cannot fight." Deho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. 30 days. Prove that your council has meaning. Prove that your laws matter. Or learn what humans become when diplomacy fails." He turned and walked toward the exit, Jiwoo falling in step behind him. Behind them, the council erupted in argument. Some species demanded humanity be censured for threatening a founding member. Others quietly wondered if the humans knew something they did not. As they reached their ship, Jiwoo spoke. "They didn't believe you." "I know," Deho said. He sat heavily in his chair and pulled out a small communication device. It was encrypted with codes that changed every second, impossible for anyone outside Earth's military to intercept. He typed one word: rejected. On Earth, deep beneath the city of Seoul, General Sung-mi sat in a command center that officially did not exist. Around her, hundreds of screens showed ship movements, colony defenses, and weapon systems that humanity had been building in secret for over a century. When Deho's message arrived, she read it 3 times. Then she opened a black case that sat on her desk. Inside was a single button marked with words in a dozen human languages. In English, it read, "Protocol Nightfall." Sangmi had hoped she would never need to press it. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment while praying it would never come. She thought of her daughter, living on one of the colonies the Vorthons had targeted. She thought of all the children who would never grow up if this continued. She pressed the button. Across human space. From the inner colonies to the far frontier, military commanders received the same message. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers began, powering up weapon systems that had never been registered with the Galactic Council. Soldiers who had been training in secret for decades checked their equipment one last time. Scientists activated defense systems hidden in asteroids, moons, and deep space stations. Humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first met the galaxy. They had hoped it would never come. They had done everything they could to avoid it. But they had always known that eventually, someone would mistake their desire for peace as weakness. The Vorthons had 30 days to learn the difference. Sangmi doubted they would use the time wisely. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the merchant vessel Morning Star, watching asteroids drift past on the view screen. To anyone scanning her ship, it looked like a standard civilian cargo hauler transporting mining equipment to the outer colonies. The hull was old. The engines ran hot. The crew of 20 seemed barely enough to keep the aging vessel running. "It was all a lie," Captain or First Officer called out. "We're receiving the activation codes." Yuna felt her heart beat faster. "Confirm authentication." "Confirmed." "Protocol Nightfall is active." She took a deep breath. "All crew to stations. Begin transformation sequence." Throughout the ship, panels slid back to reveal weapons that should not exist on a civilian vessel. The cargo bay split open and fighter craft emerged from hidden compartments. The weak shields that barely protected against space debris were replaced by military-grade barriers that could withstand direct hits from enemy warships. Within 10 minutes, the Morning Star had transformed from a helpless cargo ship into a heavy cruiser that could challenge any Vorthon destroyer, and she was not alone. Across human space, hundreds of ships just like hers were revealing their true nature, far beyond Neptune. In a region of space that official records listed as empty, Taeyong worked in a massive shipyard that had been under construction for 80 years. The station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to long-range scans. Inside, workers assembled warships using techniques and materials that the Galactic Council believed humans did not possess. Taejung was an engineer, but he had become a soldier the day Vorthan raiders killed his parents on the colony world where he grew up. He was 12 then. Now he was 35, and every ship he built carried a piece of his rage, carefully shaped into something useful. "How many are ready?" asked the station commander, visiting his section. 43 dreadnoughts, Taeyang replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. 200 destroyers. 500 fighter craft, all tested and ready for deployment, and the special weapons. Taeyang smiled grimly. "Those are ready too. The Vorthons won't know what hit them." The commander nodded. "The council banned kinetic weapons 1,000 years ago. They called them too cruel." "Good thing we're not part of the council yet," Taeyang said. "And the Vorthines are about to learn why those weapons were banned." On a research station orbiting Mars, Dr. Bora studied holographic displays showing Vorthon biology. She had been collecting data on every species in the Galactic Council since humanity's first contact, always preparing for the possibility that peaceful coexistence would fail. Now her research would be put to use. "Their exoskeletons are strong but brittle," she explained to the military officers listening to her presentation. "High-frequency vibrations can shatter them. Their respiratory systems evolved on a low-oxygen world, so they struggle in Earth-normal atmosphere. And their eyes are sensitive to light wavelengths that we consider normal. Weaknesses we can exploit," General Sangmi said from her bunker on Earth, listening through a secure channel. "Exactly," Bora confirmed. "I'm sending the full analysis to all combat units. Our weapons can be modified to maximize effectiveness against Vorthan physiology." Admiral Hyenki received the data aboard his flagship, the Indomitable. His fleet of 200 warships had been conducting evacuation drills for the past month, or so the official log stated. In reality, they had been practicing attack formations and testing new weapon systems that Earth's factories had been producing in secret. He looked at the countdown timer on his display. 27 days until the deadline. He did not expect the Vorthons to accept humanity's terms. They were too proud, too certain of their superiority. That was good. Pride made enemies predictable. "All ships report ready status," his tactical officer announced. "Excellent," Hyenki said. "Begin final preparations. I want every crew member sharp and every weapon system perfect. When the Vorthans come, we will show them what happens when you mistake patience for weakness." The secret of humanity's true strength began 150 years ago. During first contact with the Galactic Council, Earth scientists had made a startling discovery. Every other spacefaring species had evolved on low-gravity worlds. Their bones were lighter, their muscles weaker. Their bodies adapted to gentler environments. Humans, born on a high-gravity death world filled with predators and natural disasters, were built differently. A human soldier could carry twice the weight of a Vorthan warrior. Human bones were denser, human muscles stronger, human reflexes faster. In hand-to-hand combat, a trained human could defeat almost any alien species. But humanity's leaders made a choice. Instead of boasting about their advantages, they hid them. They pretended to be weak. They built civilian ships and claimed that their military was small and poorly equipped. They registered only a fraction of their true population with the Council. They acted like frightened children seeking protection from the older, wiser species, all while building weapons in the dark. It was not dishonesty, the Earth's Council had argued. It was survival. If the galaxy knew how dangerous humans could be, they would unite against Earth before humanity was strong enough to defend itself. Better to seem harmless until the day came when strength was needed. That day had arrived. On day 29. The Vorthans made their final mistake. Kreth broadcast a message across all council channels, his voice dripping with contempt. "The humans' pathetic deadline expires tomorrow," he announced. "To show what we think of their threats, the Vorthon Collective will launch our largest attack yet. We will strike at the human core worlds and teach these primitives the price of challenging their betters. Let them beg for mercy. Let them learn their place." In her command center, General Sangmi watched the broadcast with cold eyes. Around her, her staff waited for orders. "He just gave us exactly what we needed," she said quietly. "Legal justification under the Council's own laws," They announced their intent to attack. We are now acting in self-defense. She activated her communications system, speaking to every human military commander in known space. This is General Sangmi. Protocol Nightfall is now fully active. All disguises are to be dropped. All hidden defenses are to be revealed. All ships are to assume combat configuration. The pretending is over. She paused, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. We tried peace. We offered every chance for negotiations. They chose war. Now we show them what humans really are. Sang me out. Across the galaxy, the mask fell away. Civilian ships transformed into warships. Hidden bases activated weapon systems. Mining colonies revealed defensive platforms that could obliterate entire fleets. The numbers the Council had on file for humanity's military strength were revealed to be laughably wrong. Where they thought humans had 300 warships, there were actually 3,000. Where they expected minimal defenses. There were fortress worlds bristling with weapons. On the Galactic Council's monitoring stations, alarms began to sound. Energy signatures appeared on sensors that had shown nothing before. Ship counts multiplied. Weapon systems activated across. Human space-like stars igniting in the darkness. The crystal being that served as the Council's senior member watched the data in growing horror. How long have they been preparing for this? Its aid, a floating creature made of bioluminescent tissue, checked the analysis. Based on the construction dates we're detecting, since first contact, they've been building this military for 150 years. And they hit all of it? Every ship, every weapon, every defense platform. They played weak while becoming one of the most heavily armed species in the galaxy. The crystal being chimed in distress. We need to warn the Vorthons. We've been trying. They're not listening. Kreth believes the humans are bluffing. He's launching his attack on schedule. Back on the Morning Star, Yuna checked her weapons one final time. Her crew was ready. Her ship was ready. And she was definitely ready. She thought of the 40,000. Dead on Sabile 7. She thought of all the other colonies that had burned while the Council did nothing. All ships. This is Captain Yuna, she said to the squadron under her command. The Vorthons are coming. They think we're prey. Let's teach them about predators. In his hidden shipyard, Tai Jiang watched the first wave of new warships launch toward the front lines. Each one carried weapons the galaxy had not seen in 1,000 years. Each one was crewed by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Go teach them, he whispered to the departing ships. Teach them all. The Vorthon fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the handbit system with all the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. 3,000 warships, each one massive and bristling with weapons that had conquered 40 worlds. At the center of the fleet, Ambassador Kreth stood on the bridge of the command carrier. His forearms crossed in satisfaction. The humans have a colony here with 2 million inhabitants, his tactical officer reported. Our scans show minimal defensive structures. Perhaps 30 orbital platforms and a handful of patrol ships. Kreth's smile widened. Exactly as expected. These primitives cannot mount a real defense. We will burn this world as a message. By the time we reach Earth itself, they will be begging to surrender. Sir, we're detecting something unusual, another officer called out. Energy signatures are appearing across the system. Their defensive platforms powering up, Kreth said dismissively. Destroy them when we enter weapons range. The signatures kept multiplying. 10, 50, 100. 500. The tactical display began to fill with red markers, indicating hostile vessels. That cannot be right, Kreth said, leaning forward. Check your sensors. Sensors are functioning correctly, sir. We are detecting 8,000 ships. Wait. 8,200. They're still appearing. The bridge fell silent except for the beeping of alarms. Kreth stared at the display, his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. From the center of the human formation, Admiral Hyanki sat in the command chair of the Indomitable, watching the Vorthon fleet on his screens. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. Decades of secret training finally being put to use. All ships report ready. His communications officer announced, Hyanki activated the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Hyanki, to all human forces. You know what they did to our colonies? You know why we're here? Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we show them what happens when you attack Earth's children. He paused, letting his words sink in. Fire at will. 8,000 human warships opened fire simultaneously. The Vortheans had based their defensive doctrine on energy weapons, the standard armament throughout the galaxy. Their shields could absorb laser fire and deflect plasma bolts with ease. What they could not handle were the kinetic weapons that humanity had been perfecting for a century and a half. Railguns, accelerated metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. These projectiles had no energy signature for shields to detect and disperse. They were simply solid mass, moving very, very fast. When they hit Vorthon shields, they passed through as if the shields did not exist. When they hit Vorthon hulls, they punched through armor and kept going, tearing through ship after ship in devastating lines of destruction. Shields are ineffective, a Vorthon officer screamed. They're using kinetic weapons. Kreth grabbed the tactical station. Those weapons are banned. The Council outlawed them 1,000 years ago. The humans are not members of the Council, his aide reminded him quietly. Captain Yuna guided her squadron through the Vorthon formation like a knife through flesh. Her ship's computers targeted weak points in Vorthon vessel designs, information provided by Dr. Bora's research. Every shot counted. Every hit was devastating. Target their engineering sections, she ordered. BOR's data shows their power systems are poorly shielded. Her weapons officer grinned. Targeting now, Captain. The Morning Star fired a burst from its main railgun. The slug traveled 3,000 kilometers in seconds and struck a Vorthon destroyer exactly where engineering met the reactor core. The ship exploded in a flash of white light. 17 down, the weapons officer called out. This is almost too easy. Stay focused, Yuna warned. They have numbers. We can't get careless. But the Vortheans were in chaos. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to evade weapons they could not see coming. Their return fire, all energy-based, splashed harmlessly against human shields designed specifically to counter such attacks. Pilot. Jun SEO flew his fighter through the debris field of destroyed Vorthon ships, his wingman staying tight on his position. They had trained for this in simulators for years, but nothing compared to the real thing. The Vortheans were launching their own fighters now. Sleek craft designed for speed and maneuverability in low-gravity conditions. They're fast, his wingman said nervously. But they're fragile, Junasio replied, remembering his training. Human fighters were built heavier, designed to handle the intense GI forces that human pilots could endure. He pulled a turn that would have killed most alien pilots. Feeling the pressure suit squeeze his body to keep blood flowing to his brain. His targeting computer locked on a Vorthon fighter, and he fired. The enemy craft tried to evade, but its pilot could not handle the sharp maneuver. The Vorthon fighter's path became predictable, and Junisio's rounds tore it apart. Humans can maneuver in ways they can't match, he told his squadron. Use it. On the Vorthon command carrier, Kreth watched his fleet being systematically destroyed. 2,000 ships gone in the first hour, 3,000 in the second. His officers were shouting recommendations, calling for retreat, begging him to save what remained of their forces. We cannot retreat, Kreth said, his pride still choking him. We are the Vorthon Collective. We do not flee from prey animals. Sir, they're not prey, his tactical officer said desperately. These are predators. We need to withdraw and regroup. Before Kreth could respond, alarms shrieked across the bridge. Human marines in powered armor were cutting through the hull, boarding his ship. He stared in disbelief as the armor plating simply peeled away under their tools. Repel boarders. He ordered Vorthon soldiers rush to the breach points, weapons ready. When the first human marines stepped through the hole in the hull, they opened fire with everything they had. Energy bolts filled the corridor with deadly light. The human armor absorbed it all. The marine did not even slow down. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The humans moved through the ship like unstoppable machines, their armor making them immune to Vorthon weapons. their strength allowing them to tear through obstacles that should have stopped any boarding party. Within 30 minutes, they'd captured the ship's bridge. Kreth found himself staring at a human marine, whose armor was scorched and dented, but still functional. Through the helmet's visor, he could see human eyes looking at him with cold judgment. "Your ship is captured," the marine said. Her voice filtered through the armor's speakers. "Order your fleet to surrender." Never Kreth spat. The marine shrugged and signaled to her squad. They began setting demolition charges throughout the bridge. "Wait," Kreth said. "What are you doing?" "If you won't order surrender, your ship serves no purpose," the marine replied. "We'll destroy it and move to the next one. Eventually, someone in your fleet will be smart enough to give up." Kreth looked at the tactical display. Of his 3,000 ships, fewer than 400 remained. The battle had lasted for hours. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, though several showed damage. His pride, certainty, his entire worldview crumbled in that moment. These were not the weak creatures he had been mocking in the council chambers. These were warriors from a death world who had been pretending to be harmless while they prepared for this exact scenario. "I surrender," he whispered, back on Earth. Jiwoo sat in her new position at Central Command, recording the battle for the historical archives, but she was also broadcasting it live to every species in the Galactic Council. They needed to see this. They needed to understand what humanity could do when pushed to the breaking point. The crystal being that led the council watched the footage in horror. They slaughtered the Vorthan fleet. It's not slaughtered, it's aid-corrected quietly. Defeated. Look at the casualty numbers. The humans could have killed everyone. Instead, they disabled ships when possible. They accepted surrender. They took prisoners. That is even more terrifying, the crystal being chimed. They had perfect kill ratio capability and chose mercy. That means they are not acting on rage. This is calculated, professional. They have been planning this for decades. "What do we do?" the aide asked. "We wait," the crystal being said. The humans gave the Vorthans 30 days. That time is not yet expired. Let us see if the collective accepts their terms or continues this war. Admiral Hayanki stood on his bridge, looking at the list of ships captured or destroyed. His own losses: 47 ships damaged, none destroyed. Crew casualties: 212 injured, 47 dead. He thought about those 47, about their families, about the price they paid. Then he thought about the 40,000 who died on Sabiel 7 and all the other colonies that had burned. "Send a message to General Sang-mi," he told his communications officer. "The handbite system is secure, awaiting further orders." His tactical officer looked up from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthon homeworld. They're asking for a ceasefire while they consider Earth's terms." Hayanki smiled grimly. "Tell them they have 26 days left on the original deadline. We'll talk when we receive a formal acceptance of all human demands. Until then, we hold position and prepare for their next move," because he knew the Vorthans. They were proud, and pride could make species do very stupid things. 20 days after the Battle of Hanbet, Kreth stood before the Vorthan High Command, his body covered in bandages from the injuries sustained during his capture. The council chamber was filled with the leaders of 4 species that made up the Vorthan Collective, each one representing billions of citizens who had never known military defeat. "You lost 3,000 ships?" the Supreme Commander asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "The humans were prepared," Kreth said, trying to keep his voice steady. "They have been lying about their military strength since first contact." "So you say," another commander interjected, "but perhaps you were simply incompetent. The humans are weak? Everyone knows this." Kreth wanted to scream at their stupidity, but he held his tongue. "I have sent you the battle recordings. I have shown you their weapons. I am telling you that we cannot win this war with conventional tactics." The Supreme Commander stood, her exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. "The humans have embarrassed us. They have made us look weak before the entire Galactic Council. We cannot let this stand." She looked around the room. "We mobilize everything. Every ship. Every soldier. We do not attack their colonies. We strike at Earth itself. We burn their homeworld and end this farce." Kreth felt his blood run cold. That would be insane. You did not face them. You did not see what they can do. You were dismissed, Kreth, the Supreme Commander said. Your cowardice has been noted. Within days, the Vorthan Collective assembled the largest fleet in their history. 40,000 warships from 4 different species, all heading toward one target, the Sol System, the home of humanity. On Earth. General Song-Mi watched the enemy fleet approach with calm eyes. She stood in the command center deep beneath Sol, surrounded by displays showing defensive positions throughout the solar system. Beside her stood Commander Insu, who controlled the hidden defensive network that humanity had been building for over a century. They're bringing everything, Insu said quietly. This is their full military strength. Good, Song-Mi replied. Then we only have to break them once. She activated her communications system. All defensive platforms are authorized to fire when targets enter range. All fleet elements are weapons-free. Protocol Nightfall, final phase. Insu pulled up a holographic display showing the Sol System. Red markers indicated enemy positions. Blue markers showed human defenses. There were a lot of blue markers, more than the Vorthons knew existed. Defensive platforms ready, Insu reported. We have 50,000 automated weapons systems hidden throughout the asteroid belt on Luna, Mars, and in deep space. Each one is equipped with the new railgun technology and the special weapons. Song-Mi asked. Insu smiled grimly. Dr. Beer's bioweapon is loaded and ready, though I hope we don't need to use it. So do I, Song-Mi said. But if they force our hand, we will do what is necessary to protect Earth. The Vorthan fleet entered the Sol System with overwhelming confidence. They detected a few hundred human ships near Earth, exactly what they expected from a species that was supposedly weak. They did not detect the thousands of Pawns platforms hidden in the rocks and debris of the asteroid belt. Proceed to Earth, the Supreme Commander ordered from her flagship. Destroy any resistance. Prepare orbital bombardment systems. The fleet began its approach, massive ships moving in formation. They passed the orbit of Jupiter, then Mars, their scanners showing nothing unusual. It was not until they reached the asteroid belt that everything went wrong. The first mine detonated against the leading destroyer, tearing it apart. Then another mine went off, and another. Within seconds, thousands of hidden explosives activated, tearing into the Vorthan formation. Ships tried to maneuver away from the mines, only to find themselves in the targeting solutions of hidden railgun platforms. We're taking heavy fire, a tactical officer screamed. Sources are all around us. Impossible, the Supreme Commander said. Our scans showed nothing. They hid their weapons, just like they hid their fleet strength, Kreth said from his position as a disgraced observer. I tried to warn you. Commander Insu watched the battle from his lunar command base, directing the defensive platforms with practiced efficiency. Each platform was fully automated, controlled by advanced computers that could track multiple targets and fire with perfect accuracy. The Vorthons had brought 40,000 ships. He had 50,000 platforms. The math was simple. Focus fire on their carriers, he ordered. Take out their command structure. The platforms obeyed, concentrating their fire on the largest Vorthon vessels. Railgun slugs tore through shields and armor, destroying ships that had survived 100 battles. The Vorthan fleet tried to return fire, but their energy weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat. They could not effectively target the small, hardened platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt. On Mars, Colonel Menesio stood with her ground forces watching the battle unfold in orbit above. Her soldiers were the last line of defense, prepared to fight if any Vorthan ships reached the surface. She had trained them for years, teaching them every trick she knew for fighting enemies who were larger and stronger. Think we'll see action, Colonel? One of her lieutenants asked. Menesio shook her head. Not unless something goes very wrong up there. And if it does, we'll make them regret every meter they advance. But the Vorthans were not advancing. They were dying. Of their 40,000 ships, 5,000 were destroyed in the first hour. The Supreme Commander watched in growing panic as her fleet was torn apart by an enemy she could not effectively fight back against. All ships emergency maneuver. She ordered, break through to Earth. If we can bombard the planet, they will have to surrender. 2,000 Vorthon ships accelerated toward Earth, breaking formation in a desperate charge. They ran straight into Admiral Hyanki's fleet, which had been waiting in high orbit above the planet. Just like we planned, Hyanki said calmly. All ships fire. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. The Vorthines, already battered and disorganized from fighting the defensive platforms, could not mount an effective response. Ship after ship exploded under the concentrated fire. Pilot Junisu flew his fighter through the chaos, his squadron providing cover for larger ships. He saw a Vorthon battleship trying to position itself for a bombardment run on Earth. Without hesitation, he set an intercept course. Jun-SEO, what are you doing? His wingman called out. My job, Junicio replied. His fighter was damaged, his weapons almost empty, but his engines still worked. He accelerated toward the Vorthon ship, ignoring the defensive fire that tore at his craft. Eject. Eject. His wingman was screaming now, but Junicio kept going. He thought about his family down on Earth. He thought about all the people who had died in the Vorthon attacks. He thought about what would happen if even one bombardment ship got through. His fighter slammed into the Vorthon battleship's bridge at full speed. The explosion destroyed both vessels in a flash of light that could be seen from the surface of Earth back in her command center. General Sangmi watched Junicio's fighter disappear from the display. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and continued directing the battle. She would mourn later. Right now, she had a planet to defend. The Vorthon Supreme Commander realized they could not win this battle. Of her 40,000 ships, less than 20,000 remained functional. The humans had not even committed their full fleet yet, and their defensive systems were still operating at peak efficiency. Signal retreat, she ordered, her voice hollow. Ma'am, we cannot retreat, her tactical officer said. The humans have blocked all exit vectors. She looked at her display and saw that it was true. Human ships had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. They were trapped. Dr. Biora's voice came over the command channel from her research station. General Sangmi, deploying the bioweapon now. Sangmi nodded. Authorized. Make sure it's non-lethal. Throughout the battle zone, missiles launched from hidden platforms. They did not explode. Instead, they released a carefully engineered viral agent into space, one that Biora had designed specifically for Vorthon physiology. The virus spread quickly, infecting every Vorthon ship it touched. Within minutes, Vorthon crews began collapsing at their stations. The virus did not kill them, but it shut down their nervous systems temporarily, rendering them unconscious but alive. Ship after ship went dark as their crews fell into forced sleep. The Supreme Commander felt the virus take hold, limbs going numb. What? What have they done to us? General Sangmi's voice came over the communication channel, broadcast to every Vorthon ship. This is General Sangmi of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet is defeated. Your crews will wake in approximately 12 hours with no permanent damage. We are transmitting coordinates for surrender. Any ship that does not comply will be destroyed. This is your only warning, and the only mercy you will receive. The Supreme Commander used her last moments of consciousness to whisper one word: comply. When the Vorthon crews woke 12 hours later, they found their ships surrounded by human marines. They were alive. They were unharmed. But they were completely and utterly defeated. Of the 40,000 ships that entered the Sol system, only 8,000 survived. The rest were either destroyed or too damaged to ever fly again. And humanity had accomplished this while suffering minimal casualties. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth was not weak. Earth had never been weak. Earth had simply been patient, waiting for the day when its strength would be needed. That day had come, and the Vorthines had learned too late what it meant to threaten. Species that had clawed its way to the stars from a world that tried to kill them every single day? The Galactic Council. Chamber had never been so quiet. Every species representative sat in their designated area, watching the human ambassador walk to the center platform. But this time Deho did not walk alone. Behind him came Admiral Hyanki in full military dress. General Sangmi with her medals catching the light, and Dr. Biora carrying datapads containing evidence that would shake the foundations of galactic politics above them. Holographic displays showed footage from the two battles: the destruction of the Vorthan fleet at Hanbit, the defense of Earth. Numbers scrolled past showing ship counts, casualty figures, and weapon capabilities that the Council had never imagined humans possessed. The crystal being that served as Council chairman chimed nervously. Ambassador Deho, the Council recognizes Earth's unexpected military capability. We are prepared to discuss terms? Terms? Deho asked quietly. You mean the same terms I proposed 30 days ago? The ones you laughed at? Silence filled the chamber. Several species representatives shifted uncomfortably. The difference is, Deho continued, 30 days ago. Those were requests from a species seeking justice through legal channels. Today, they are demands from a military power that has proven it can enforce its will. Kreth sat in a small, uncomfortable seat reserved for disgraced officials. His people had stripped him of his title after the disasters at Hanbit and Seoul. He watched. Deho was something that might have been respect mixed with fear. Humanity demands the following, Deho said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. First, immediate reparations for all colonies attacked over the past 3 years. The amount will be determined by an independent investigation that Earth will oversee. A representative from one of the Vorthan species tried to object. That is unreasonable. You cannot oversee your own compensation. General Sangmi stepped forward. Would you prefer we calculate the amount based on what it would cost to rebuild your 40,000 destroyed warships? Because we have those numbers too. The objection died instantly. Second Deho continued. Formal recognition of all human territorial claims. No challenges, no disputes, no negotiations. The colonies are ours. Third, the Vorthon Collective is hereby dissolved. Each species will negotiate with Earth separately. We will not deal with coalitions that hide behind collective responsibility while enabling individual aggression. The Vorthan representatives looked at each other in shock. Their Allion C, which had stood for 10,000 years, was being dismantled by a species that had been in space for barely 2 centuries. Fourth, establishment of new military protocols throughout Council space. All species will register their true military strength, not the convenient fictions we all pretend to believe. Hidden fleets and secret weapons will be declared and inspected. The chamber erupted in arguments. Half the species present had been hiding their true capabilities, just like humanity had. They did not want to reveal their secrets. Admiral Hankey's voice cut through the chaos. We know you've all been lying about your military strength. We've known for years. The difference is that we don't care about your secrets as long as you stop attacking our people. But if you want to maintain the fiction that the Council has authority, then the Council needs accurate information. Slowly, the arguments died down. Species representatives began to realize that humanity was offering them a way out. Reveal their secrets now, under the cover of new regulations, or be exposed later as liars and treaty violators. Fifth and finally, Deho said, Earth demands full voting membership on the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The crystal being chimed thoughtfully. That is a reasonable request. However, several species have expressed concern about humanity's demonstrated military capability and apparent willingness to use it. Dr. Biora stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Then let me address those concerns directly. Yes, humanity is capable of great violence. We evolved on a world where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill us. We learned to fight because fighting was how we survived. She activated a new display, showing images of Earth, hospitals, schools, research facilities. But we also learned something else. We learned that cooperation achieves what conflict cannot. Every great human achievement, from our first cities to our first starships, required people working together. We know how to fight. We also know when not to fight. Evidence suggests otherwise, a nervous representative said. Does it? Sangmi asked. We could have killed every Vorthon who attacked us. Instead, we disabled their ships and took prisoners. We could have bombarded their homeworlds. Instead, we offered terms. We could have revealed our strength a century ago and conquered half the galaxy. Instead, we hid it and sought peaceful coexistence. She looked around the chamber. You mistake our restraint for weakness. That was your error, not ours. We have shown you what we are capable of when pushed to war. Now, let us show you what we can accomplish in peace. Over the next 3 days, negotiations continued. Species that had been allied with the Vorthans scrambled to distance themselves. Former neutral powers offered trade agreements and technology exchanges. The council structure itself began to shift as humanity's presence forced everyone to reconsider old assumptions. On the 4th day, Ambassador Nelth of the Vorthan species approached Deho privately. Nelth was younger than Kreth, less prideful, and had opposed the attacks on human colonies from the beginning. Want to apologize, Nelth said quietly. Many of my people did not support the war, but we were not strong enough to stop it. Deho studied the alien's face. And now, those who pushed for war are disgraced. The Supreme Commander has been removed from power. We have a chance to rebuild our relationship with humanity from the beginning. Nelth paused. If you will allow it. I don't want revenge, Deho said. I want peace. If your people genuinely seek that, Earth will meet you halfway. Nelth nodded. Then let me make the first gesture. We will pay the reparations you demanded without dispute. We will open our archives to your investigators. And we will work to ensure that this kind of conflict never happens again. 5 years later, the galaxy looked very different. Captain Yuna's ship, no longer disguised as a civilian freighter, escorted trade vessels through what had once been dangerous space. Vorthan pirates who had preyed on shipping lanes were now in prison or working honest jobs. The trade routes were safe, prosperity was spreading, and old enemies were learning to become neighbors. Tae Young had converted his weapons manufacturing facilities to civilian production. The same shipyards that had built dreadnoughts now constructed hospital ships and research vessels. He sometimes looked at the new ships and marveled at how much more satisfying it was to build something that helped rather than hurt. Admiral Hyanki, now retired from active duty, ran a training academy where human Marines taught other species soldiers about combat tactics and military discipline. The galaxy had been shocked to discover that humans were excellent teachers. Patient and thorough, Commander Insu's defensive network around Earth had become a model that other species copied for their own homeworlds. He spent his time now as a consultant, helping worlds build defenses that would protect them without threatening their neighbors. Colonel Menesio led disaster relief efforts across Council space. When earthquakes struck an alien world or floods devastated a colony, her teams were often the first to arrive with aid. Humans, adapted to Earth's harsh conditions, could work in environments that would kill most species. They saved lives by the thousands. Dr. Bior's research had expanded beyond military applications. Her understanding of alien biology led to medical breakthroughs that cured diseases across a dozen species. The same knowledge that had created bioweapons now created vaccines and treatments. General Sang-mi, still serving as Earth's chief military commander, spent most of her time now in diplomatic meetings rather than war rooms. She advocated for restraint, for careful consideration, for peace whenever possible. The burden of command had taught her that the hardest battles were not fought with weapons. Ambassador Jiwoo, who had once been a simple communications officer, now served as humanity's primary liaison to the Galactic Council. She had seen everything from the mockery in the council chambers to the battles that proved humanity's strength. She worked every day to make sure that the next generation would not have to make such terrible choices. Deho had retired from public service. Choosing to live quietly in a small house overlooking the ocean, he grew a garden and read books and tried not to think too much about the 40,000 people who died on Sabaya 7. Sometimes late at night, he still saw their faces. But in the morning, he would walk on the beach and watch cargo ships flying overhead, carrying goods between Earth and former enemies. And he would think that maybe their deaths had not been meaningless. One afternoon, he received an unexpected visitor. Nelth, the Vorthan ambassador who had helped broker the peace. stood at his door carrying a bottle of Vorthen wine and a hesitant smile. "I hope I am not intruding," Nelth said. "Not at all," Deho replied. "Please, come in." They sat on the porch, looking out at the ocean. For a while, neither spoke. Then Nelth asked the question that had been bothering him for years. "Did your people always know they were this strong?" Deho sipped his tea, considering his answer. "We knew, but strength without wisdom is just violence. We hoped we would never have to show what we were capable of. We wanted friends, not subjects. We wanted trade partners, not conquered territories. And now?" Nelth asked. "Now we teach the galaxy what we learned on Earth," Deho said. "That peace is not weakness. That mercy is not surrender. That the strongest species are the ones who know when not to use their strength." Nelth nodded slowly. "My children attend school with human children now. They learn your language. They share your food. 5 years ago, I would have thought that impossible." "Yeah, 5 years ago you would have been right," Deho agreed. "But things change. People change. Societies change. The question is whether we change for better or worse." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the ocean. In orbit above, mixed crews of humans and aliens worked together on a new space station. On the horizon, a Vorthan cargo ship passed by a human patrol vessel, both acknowledging each other with friendly signals. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still tensions, still old grudges, still species that viewed humanity with suspicion. But the path forward was clear. Not through domination, not through fear, but through the hard, patient work of building trust, one relationship at a time, in a classroom on a human colony world. A teacher stood before a mixed class of human and alien students. One young student, a Vorthan child, raised their hand. "Teacher, why did humans hide their strength for so long?" The teacher, a veteran of the Battle of Hanbit, smiled gently. "Because making friends is harder than making enemies, and we wanted friends. We still do." The child thought about this, then nodded. Next to them, a human child offered to share their lunch. The Vorthan child accepted with a grateful gesture. And in that simple moment of kindness between former enemies, the future of the galaxy was being written. It was a future worth fighting for. But more importantly, it was a future worth building together.